When you install League of Legends, you're legally required to gain 200 pounds. In my tight niche friend group, we all play pretty competitive games, and League of Legends is by far the most sweaty try-hard wannabe game I have ever played.
Holy shit, I'm about to penta, I'm about to penta, I'm about to penta! Yes! Yes! Yes!
Nice.
Bruh, the Ari stole my kill.
Oof. Will you only get 4?
Yeah, bro. For fuck's sake!
And to be fair, that is one of the many things it's known for. Regardless of your opinion on MOBAs or League in general, you definitely have heard of the game and the gigantic esports prize pool it gives out every year. The temptation to give the game a shot has always been around, even for me who has always hated games with a top-down perspective and never thought I'd like League. But some friends played it and pretty much begged me to try the game out, so I gave it a shot, and, as any League player would agree, the game is almost downright addicting. Since the current season came out, I stopped playing ranked, but I still play this game almost daily. In fact, it's probably starting to feel like my World of Warcraft addiction I had, since while working, I can't wait to just play League when I'm done. Whether I'm getting my ass handed to me by my hard-feeding Aurelia mid, or when I'm one-shotting kids as a fed Zyra, this game never ceases to bring me back. As well as spend my money. Oh hell yeah, baby, no skin for Zyra, baby, let's go. The game is a piece of shit, but it's very addicting, and the thought of doing well and being super fed, or even getting that dopamine rush from winning the game just keeps pulling me back over and over again. By no means am I advocating for you to spend money on this pile of poo-poo. Please don't, it's not worth it. But the game itself does have good appealing factors, and even if you just want to have some wacky skins to not look like you just downloaded the game, you can get them for free by getting a chest from doing good, or your friend doing good. And after getting enough key fragments from being honored in games, just play support, you'll get like 1 million. You can open a chest for free and get a skin fragment out of it. You still need to turn it into a skin with orange essence, which you can get from disenchanting these shards, but in theory you can get any skin in game for free. That being said, the skin shards are completely random, and if you find your main and you want a neat skin for them, you're not super likely to get one for that specific character, and even if you did, it's not super likely that it'll be the one you want. But I have gotten quite a few good skins like Project Pike, Nightbringer Soraka, Darkstar Thresh, and many others. So you could theoretically play the game entirely without spending money. In fact, the only real incentive to spend money is for skins. Yes, you could buy characters, but when you get blue essence relatively easy and pretty commonly, there isn't much of a reason to. Apart from the ability to not spend your hard-earned money on the game though, the game itself is pretty fun. I will admit, 90% of the time you die, you typically blame either Riot Games, your teammates, the champion you're playing, or the champion you're playing against, but this may be player dependent. Although everyone I play with does this, so maybe there's just some weird intrinsic value about League that makes you feel like you're not to blame. Maybe it's the fact that combat can last less than a second, or maybe it's the fact that I have friends that don't typically like to blame themselves. Unsure, but it is something I've noticed. I should probably explain the combat a bit, since if you're watching this you might have never played the game before or know very little about it. There are 5 players in each team, each of which have their own individual role. Top laners are tanks or brawlers, most of the time, that usually face one another uninterrupted. The top lane is usually called an island, and it's because no one really ever goes there besides the top laner. So for learning the game, it's probably the best role to play, since you'll barely be interrupted. Jungle, unlike the other roles, doesn't have a lane, and instead roams around you guessed it, the jungle, farming monsters, also known as camps, to get XP as well as buffs from blue buff, which is mana regen, and red buff, which is health regen. The role of the jungler is to prioritize objectives such as Drake, Baron, or Rift Herald, all while ganking lanes to protect their laners or help them get kills, and while having to counter jungle the enemy by sneaking into their jungle and taking their camps. It's definitely a lot to take in and not the best place to start learning the game, since there's a lot to it, like minion management, yelling at your laners to shove their wave when an objective is up so you have priority, fighting over scuttle, but honestly it's not terribly hard when you get the hang of it. It just takes a minute. Mid lane is the middle lane, hard to figure that one out, isn't it? And it is arguably the most difficult lane since you can get ganked by not one, but both sides. The lane is typically filled with more difficult champions, I'm not talking about Yone by the way, that are more high risk, high reward. Squishy champs that can easily snowball and hard carry, but can also be absolutely useless throughout the game. Definitely not my first recommendation for people learning, since it's not the easiest lane, but it can also be more fun with champs that have drastically better movement and skill shots. Lastly, there's the ADC, otherwise known as the bot, which is a very fitting name, and the support. Unlike the other roles, bot and support work together in the same lane. Typically, the support takes care of the ADC, helping with engaging into fights, zoning, keeping the enemy ADC from farming, and keeping their own ADC alive, When in doubt, the support even should let themselves die to get the ADC away, since they are typically the ones with the shutdown gold. Which is, if you go on a killing spree, you gain a bounty from 150 gold all the way up to 700 gold. So if anyone is to die in the bot lane, most of the time it's up to the support to sacrifice themselves for the good of the team. While the support works hard to keep the ADC from hard inting, the ADC's job is to farm the minions, these little guys, for gold, as well as capitalize on whatever engagements the support makes if they're good engages and not complete throws. ADC stands for attack damage carry, and as the name implies, they have a lot of weight throughout the entire game. If a tank or even support don't do amazing, it's not the biggest deal, but if someone like your ADC or jungle or mid throws, then even though you do good, you might lose the game completely based off your teammates doing poorly. And that's one of the issues with League. You see, ranked in this game is probably the hardest to climb out of all games. For reference, I haven't tried to climb in Dota, but in League there are 2 ranked game modes, solos, duos, and flex. No one cares about flex though, so it's really only solo or duo queuing. But in this game, unlike every other competitive game, you can perform admirably, and just lose because your teammates hard through. Games like CSGO and Valorant, games where even if you have dog water teammates, you can still hard carry no matter what you're playing, you can queue with as many people as you want. But in League of Legends, a game where tankier characters or healing supports don't really have as much carry potential as the ADC or the mid laner, you can only queue with one other person at max, and this is a pretty big problem. You end up having really good support and tank players stuck in ranks they shouldn't be because they don't either A, care enough to play the hard carry champs, or B, are good enough at the hard carry champs. And players are typically forced into one-tricking the mid lane or jungle until they're out of a low rank, and then they can play what they actually enjoy playing, not what the game forces you to play to get good. I mean, it is important to be good at every role and know what each character does pretty well, but forcing your players to play certain roles or characters to rank up just doesn't feel right. If you're a singed main and you love running into people and showering them with your stinky gas, then you should be allowed to do that and have the same chance of ranking up as someone who is a Katarina one-trick in the mid lane. But the game just doesn't allow that, and even duo queuing, you're almost forced into playing a mid and jungle to rank up as fast as possible, leaving the other players like Soraka or Nami mains behind. Even if they have the skill and knowledge of a gold or maybe even a plat, they get stuck playing in bronze and silver elo just because of who they enjoy playing. My personal opinion? Get rid of flex, no one plays it, there's a 5-minute queue time for it. And just do what literally every other competitive game does and allow you to queue with as many people as you want. Teams of 3 or more can only get matched against other teams of 3 or more, and so on. Always take into consideration their average ELO or MMR, whatever the game uses, and only queue them against players around that same ELO or MMR. Riot Games literally has this in place in Valorant. So why not just put it in League, a game where team coordination and communication is one of the most important factors? I get this may piss off people who have already ranked up through one-tricking the mid lane and have already gone through the trials and tribulations of climbing out of elo hell in League. But you have to admit, it's not a fair ranking system to players who either aren't good at hard carry characters or their lanes in general, or just don't want to play them. Yes, I completely agree that they're important to learn and know how to play for every player, but if you don't enjoy the champ, and you enjoy someone else, characters like Ivern should have an equal opportunity to rank up as characters like Fizz, Akali, Yone, Yasuo, and I could go on. Another issue with League is its banning phase. Now, the idea of banning doesn't really have anything wrong with it, and honestly, even though it's a bit annoying to have the champ you want to play get banned, it's a really good feature, on paper at least. The issue with this game's banning phase is this: each player in the team can only ban one champ they don't want to play against. That being said, comparing it to other games that have banning like Rainbow Six, there aren't too many champs, or I think they're called operators in Rainbow Six. League of Legends has 158, so only being able to ban one champ helps, but it typically means you have to pick the worst of the two negatives. And also, with the amount of champions in the game itself, it poses another issue where if you ban a champ, there's typically just another champ that plays similarly or exactly the same as the champ that you banned. So you end up in a situation where you've banned, let's say, Garen in the top lane, and you end up going against Darius, which is pretty much the same exact thing. And this happens in pretty much every role. Ban Kha'Zix, go against Nocturne. Ban Nico, go against Lux. Ban Caitlyn, go against Ashe. Ban Soraka, go against Nami or even Yumi. So it always boils down to just picking whichever one you dislike more, typically at random, and just dealing with the matchup you go against. Not only does this just solidify your weaknesses against said champs, it's you never play against them, so you get very little experience against them. It also means that you get good enough to play against champs or similar champs regularly and beat them, but since you always ban that champ, you don't know if you've gotten good enough yet. And you may just be wasting your ban on someone who isn't worth it in the first place. Of course, I don't think the ban system should just be done without, and its presence is nice in the current Atmosphere League, but it does present an obscure problem where the amount of champs makes bans almost useless, but changing the system in any way might not be beneficial as well, since simply upping the ban count from 1 person to 2 may make the system seem clunky or make focus banning much more of an issue, since in my small experience in pro play, let's go Paul Smith, showed me how annoying it can be when 3 out of the 5 bans were on our jungler. Aside from the ban server, League also has an inherent problem that you cannot try out any champ unless you own them, or they're on free rotation. What this boils down to is you end up playing with new players, never learning how certain champs work, like Skarner, because no one plays them. I'm over level 200 and I just learned that these little orb things give Skarner buffs. I always thought they were just a weird vision thing. Unlike, oddly enough, Heroes of the Storm, you can't take any champ you don't own and bring them into a practice tool to see how they work. They even have this in Smite. In League, you either have to buy them or get lucky on free rotation. All this ends up boiling down to is new players taking forever to learn their matchups because they can't learn what certain characters do, since they can't play them because they're either too expensive or they aren't on free rotation. Of course, everyone learns their matchups with time of playing the game, especially with some of the more popular characters, but that doesn't excuse the inherent issue of not being able to try out and learn the other champs. On top of this, you do get a lot of blue essence from completing the tutorial, but most people who get League get it because a friend wanted to play with them. And as such, they may skip the tutorial to just play with their friend. And even if they did complete the tutorial, most players will spend all their blue essence on cheap champions instead of the ones they're interested in, because in order to play draft, the most common game mode that pretty much everyone plays, you need a minimum of 20 champs unlocked, which does include the free-to-play champs, but that's still not enough. So you end up having to grind out a champion you want to play because they look cool, when you might just not enjoy the champion in general. And since most champions are now around 6,000 blue essence, you've wasted a lot of your blue essence on someone you're never going to play ever again. You can refund the purchase, but you only get 3. They do give you in one every year, although they don't tell you about it and you only get it in an email and you have to go to their website and claim it personally. But other than that, any purchases you regret aren't undoable. This game has a lot of issues, but you can't lie, it's downright addicting. The cons, however, are so great that once you start playing it, it's all you ever notice. Yeah, it's fun and it has its good points, but any League of Legends player will admit that they're just addicted to the game. Even with its issues, I can't deny I love this game. I mean, yeah, it's terrible, yeah, it's harsh, and it's a piece of utter dog water, but I can't stop coming back to it. Well, World of Warcraft is busy releasing unfinished content. League of Legends is out there releasing fun, new champs, and keeping me entertained. Yeah, I know it's an odd comparison, they're completely different games, the only real similarity is that they have cool items and that they're medieval, fantasy, but both games keep me coming back and keep me addicted. Unlike WoW though, I didn't quit and I do stay with League. Yeah, I could talk about how individual champs and their annoying quirks. Yeah, I could go on about how ranged top lanes are annoying and shouldn't exist. Yeah, there's a bunch of small minute details. But I can't stop playing League and I don't think I ever will. It's pretty much an addiction at this point, but I do love playing the game. Can I recommend the game? No, not really, not at all, honestly. I cannot recommend this game to anyone because of how much bad stuff it has. But I can't say you shouldn't give it a shot. It is free, all it's going to take you is space. But should you play it? I don't really think so. But at the end of the day, it's always your decision and it's something you decide. If you got this far, you probably enjoyed what you watched. I put a lot of time into these and any support would be appreciated. Feel free to subscribe, comment down below, and hit that bell to be notified whenever I upload. I'm also somewhat active on Twitter, so if you want to hear more from me or what I'm up to, anything like that, go follow me on there. It's somewhere in the description.